Most people think the British Empire is something of the past, but a lot of the infrastructure never really went away. It just evolved, rebranded again, as the empire likes to do. One of the most overlooked examples of this is a group called the Pilgrims Society. It was founded in London and New York in 1902, and its purpose was simple: to formalise and maintain the relationship between the British and the American elites, long after America declared its independence. This is not a government organisation. This is not a public alliance. It was, and still is, a private dining club full of powerful families, bankers, politicians, media moguls from both sides of the Atlantic. Notable members of the Pilgrim Society include Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, Henry Kissinger, all the good eggs, George Shultz, Donald Rumsfeld, Caspar Weinberg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, at least 10 former US Secretary of States, at least 5 former CIA directors, including Alan W. Dulles and James Woosley, J.P. Morgan, David Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Andrew Mellon of the bank, Jacob Schiff, Paul Wilbur, Walter Cronkite, Henry Luce, who founded Time magazine, Arthur Schulzberg, who published the New York Times. The Queen, the King, is their patron, to name but a few. This membership list reads like a directory of the people who have shaped the modern world. For the negative, leaders of banking dynasties, major media owners, including the owners of Reuters and The Times, political figures like Winston Churchill, and multiple US presidents. These were not isolated individuals. These are connected by family ties. It's old colonial wealth. What makes the Pilgrim Society particularly interesting to me is how this pattern mirrors old structures of power from the British Empire. Land ownership, resource extraction, financial control, and narrative management. The British Empire didn't fall. It now operates through corporations and banks, think tanks, and the media. In the 1700s, the British East India Trading Company was a private corporation backed by royal power. Today, multinational companies have replaced them, but many of the same families who are now involved in global finance trace their wealth back to these colonial systems. Understanding this history helps explain why American foreign policy looks so similar to British imperialism. It helps explain why media narratives across the US and the UK are always so closely aligned. It also helps to explain how wealth and power have stayed so tightly concentrated within a relatively small network of connected individuals. During the First World War, the Pilgrim Society engaged in efforts to sway the American public, convince them to go to war. Through orchestrated events and strategic communications, they aimed to highlight Anglo-American shared values and the importance of a united front against a common enemy. Again, during World War II, the Pilgrim Society facilitated events and strategic communications that underscored the necessity of Anglo-American cooperation. In March 1941, Winston Churchill gave a speech at the Pilgrim Society. It was broadcast to people in both countries, and it emphasised solidarity and the shared stakes in this global conflict. The Society's role has not gone unchallenged. For instance, in the 1920s, the Mayor of Chicago expressed deep concerns about the pro-British sentiments showing up in American school books, implicating the Pilgrim Society in efforts to unduly influence American education and public opinion. Through strategic networking, media engagement, and orchestrated events, the Pilgrim Society has a huge influence on public opinion. Their activities highlight the power of these elite networks and the role they play in steering public discourse. It's likely that editorial red lines are agreed during pilgrim dinners. You kind of see this in the placement of the pro-empire op-eds around the times of war. This looks like pre-approved messaging. It's too consistent. And as usual, it's British soft touch censorship, shaping what's omitted rather than what's said, ensuring British and American media alignment, especially on topics like Israel-Palestine, NATO expansion, and any other US-UK military action. Every global propaganda campaign in modern history, from World War I, demonizing the Germans to pull the US in, from World War II, repackaging the British Empire as democracy versus fascism, Cold War, Anglo-American, capitalism equals freedom, the war on terror, civilization versus barbarians. Even now, reframing NATO expansion as an attempt to bring order lines up exactly with this invisible network of elite interest. This is continuity from the British Empire.